And now it's time to bring on a friend of the podcast.
I really love it when we have somebody on that knows us, right? Because there's a vetting process to this, I think, right? And we
on both sides, right?
We sure appreciate Dr. J. Malmquist coming back on and talking to us about dentistry and really today about the business model of dentistry. Welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. And
it's been a while.
It has.
I know, 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
You know, we set a very important precedent in that we were the first meeting to cancel in the face of the pandemic. And then it sort of went worldwide.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
AO was the first major meeting to cancel.
Wow.
And a lot of other organizations looked to our leadership.
That's awesome.
That's impressive.
Kevin Smith and the board were to be congratulated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, last time, we go back a couple of years ago, and we were talking to you at that time about a little bit about what your practice was going through and some cool transitions that were happening. Your son was coming into the practice and things were moving and shaking. And
you met my son.
Yes,
exactly.
My son Michael joined. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was sort of maybe where we wanted to start the conversation today in talking about, practice and business and the business and practice of implant dentistry coming together. Talk a little bit about what's been happening in your practice, a little bit about maybe your practice to kind of tell people who don't know you, where you practice, kind of the focus of your practice, and then let's talk maybe about that transition a bit, like what's been going on the last couple of years.
Well, I practice in a very famous place, as a matter of fact. It's Portland, Oregon, which has been on the news almost continuously for a year and a half to 2 years, and we moved into a new facility on the south waterfront, which is about 4 to 5 blocks due east from where all the riots were. So it was a little traumatic and certainly had an effect on us, that plus the pandemic. But we've recoiled very nicely, and we certainly enjoy being there now. And Michael is taking over pretty much the running of the practice as I sort of start to fade back a little bit. But as far as the business standpoint goes, we had a decided dip, as everybody did, with the pandemic. And that coupled with the political upheaval in Portland was certainly a negative because people viewed us as being downtown even though we weren't. And so there was a certain reluctance to come downtown. But we've more or less overcome that, frankly, because of, I think, good care and really taking care of people well and trying to give them the very best care we can.
Well, when you think about, there's kind of two roads I think we wanted to go down with this conversation.
Sure.
One is the idea of preparing your practice for bringing a new doctor in, which you had, and there's lots of ways for that to go, whether it's, joining to continue to grow with two doctors, whether that's a transition in and a transition out as you're sort of talking through. But there's a lot that goes into that, especially in the referral-based world, to build relationships and to build that goodwill that you've created over the years. Talk a little bit about some of those challenges and some things that have happened to kind of prepare. What should clinicians be thinking about if they're looking at bringing a new doctor into their practice?
Well, I think the most important thing that they have to think about is they have to have compatibility, and they have to have the same set of goals with regards to success and patient care that the person who's bringing them in has. And I'm going to speak this afternoon on the business of dentistry, a little bit of business of implant dentistry. And one of the things I'm going to talk about is just what we face in terms of what the disruptors are, and then just a little bit about success and what success is. And then, but my final theme, and I hate to give away my talk a little too soon, but my answer at the end is you've got to love what you do. And you've got to find somebody that loves what they do. It's got to be your focal point of your practice, perhaps of your life in terms of being successful. And I've got kind of a surprise I'm not going to give away to you, but my final slide is very impressive in regards to who shares that idea with us. I don't know if somebody's going to see this before the lecture.
They may.
Yeah, they may.
Okay.
So I'm going to don't give away the punchline.
I'll hold it back. Right. So I think having a structure within the practice that's going to support whoever's there. We have, as I think we talked about when we talked before, we have clinical observers that come in their final year of residency in OMS and spend anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks with us and see just how we do things. And everything from the clinical aspects to the business side of things. And so that's a very popular program.
You know, some people have put dentist into a category in business as a technician. But
Yes.
besides being the technician, there are managers, and then there's a person that actually sets the vision of the practice or the business per se.
Right.
You know, who have you surrounded yourself with over the years to help you? Obviously, you're a technician, and but to help manage, or maybe you did the management, and then also set the vision of the practice. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you know, that's an excellent point, and your vision is amazing. I have 3 people that work for us. One has been with me 26 years, one has been with me 18 years, and one has been with me 14 years, and 2 that have recently retired. And so taking care of the employees and having the employees share the same vision that you do is something that's just paramount to success. And so I have gone out of my way, and now Michael's taking up the torch and doing that in terms of passing the torch on, in terms of educating these people and educating them from the standpoint of what we do. For instance, I'll give you an example. We had a 1-hour lecture the other day in the office where we talked about what makes the Four Seasons the Four Seasons. Why is the Four Seasons different than, say, the Marriott here?
Right.
You know, what it comes down to more than anything is attention to detail.
Yep.
And taking care of people and making everybody feel important. And so I've tried to put that feeling into the employees, the key employees, and they have really grabbed it and run with it. So that's one of the ways that we've done this success-wise, is with that in mind, and really stressing that. And one of the slides I'm going to show this afternoon is, you know, are you quantity or are you quality?
It's great.
What do you want? Do you want to be? If you want to be quantity, then you're not going to be my partner. If you want to be quality, then we can talk. And I think that's very important. So I think putting success in terms of outcomes very high on the list in terms of what patient outcomes you should expect and what patients should expect in terms of outcomes.
One of my mentors early on told me that you can't it won't just happen to you with success. It won't just happen to you. You have to think about, you know, what is your ideal day? When do you want to start? When do you want to end? Who do you want to work with? And you have to work toward that. Did you have any practices that you looked at as you started, or people that have come along in your practice life that you say, I want to be like that person. I want my practice to be more like what that person's doing. Have people influenced you in that way?
That's a good question. I don't think I come up with a specific person. I think that I can't say that I have one person that was a mentor. I had many mentors that were very helpful in developing my surgical skill set. And then I've had mentors that have helped me develop my perspective in terms of just principles and ethics.
Yes.
And trying to keep an ethical thing. And then I see people, you see people, we all see people that work a long day. And I don't think dentistry is an 8-hour day. I think dentistry goes well beyond an 8-hour day, and including, you know, leaking into the weekends to do things. So it's been just a culmination of people.
Yes.
That I have looked to over the years in the committee work I've done, in leadership positions and all that, and just a collage that continues to feed the practice.
Certainly, there are people that influence us that we're not even aware of. And one of the great things that you're going to be able to do is influence your son or your associate, per se,
Right.
maybe even partner. We're not privy to that, but you're going to be able to mentor him. But you mentioned something that I think is key, is you said, I'm giving him a role. Right? And that, to me, speak to that about what creates accountability is actually lending a role in some ways to your son, and how does that work?
Well, of course, with family, it's much more difficult probably at times than it is with non-family.
Sure.
Because you can be a little bit more dictatorial with non-family. But with regards to family, first of all, it's a leadership position that I try to show. So I'm usually the first one there, and many times the last one to leave. And so I'm asking him to sort of follow that way with the staff. And then just the way you handle patients, the way you follow up, the way you take care of the problems that occur. And, there's a lot of problems that occur in a surgical practice. It's not a slam dunk. So I just try every day to give him an idea about, for instance, what does our stationery look like?
Right.
How does the waiting room look? Are the magazines arranged?
Mm-hmm.
Do you say yeah or yes, sir? Just little things. How do you address a patient? Do you ever address a patient by their first name until they tell you to? How do you dress? How do you groom? What you look like. And just what the outlay of the office looks like in terms of surgery is very precise. So if you've got a sloppy office, you're going to maybe have a sloppy surgeon, and that's not good. So those are the things I sort of stress with him. And then of the economics of it, that you've got to be progressive in terms of having new equipment, be on the cutting edge of innovation, and yet don't strangle yourself with a set of leases and outcomes that won't allow you to realize a reasonable return for your investment.
Yes, yes, and I think that just the idea of these soft skills, as it were, the things that are harder to put in a textbook. It sounds like you've got sort of one hat that I think we all wear these two hats. One is, subscribing yourself to quality, making sure that you're reading the right research and that you're going to the meetings at the AO, for instance, making sure that you're surrounding yourself with experts, but also it's the soft skills. It's, talking about, I remember learning from Starbucks, every morning the manager goes out to the parking lot and makes the walk into the counter and looks to see if everything's in line and what's the customer going to see when they walk in that Starbucks. It should be a certain thing, and we can learn a lot from
what
that.
you're talking about, John, is a leader, right?
Yes.
And can a leader be trained? That's a question,
well,
right?
I think in some aspects, yes, they can be trained. They can certainly look at leadership videos and things like that and get ideas and take a little bit from here and a little bit from there. But leadership essentially ultimately comes from within. And it's the image that you project to whoever you're with and the preciseness with which you do things. And repetition. One of the things I've stressed with Michael is that surgery is repetition. You're not going to do something different one day and then different the next day. Success is based on repetition.
Yes.
So, and he's been very good about taking this on. And of course, he came from a wonderfully background of training. He was at Baylor University for his OMS training, and 5 years there, and then I spent a year down in Dallas as a fellow, and so he really comes with a skill set that I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I wish when I was training there was those opportunities.
We talked about this a couple years ago, but I think for those of you who maybe haven't seen that, it's great to kind of go back to this. What are some of the things as a referral-based practice that you've done with your referrals that you feel have been able to grow your practice to what it is and having the relationships that you have? Why do people send patients to you? Why do your referrals trust you?
So my brand, so to speak, I think that's the word that you young guys use nowadays.
Sure.
But, my brand was always to be intellectually very competent and sort of have the answers for things that maybe other people didn't have the answers for. Or just be, so it wasn't going to the golf course. It wasn't going to lunch. It was trying to provide intellectual support for my referral base with lectures, study clubs, or just good case outcomes. I write everybody a letter. And Michael uses texting, which drives me nuts because I don't do so well. And then he's finally gotten over the Instagram thing. But going on Instagram and seeing how people do things, I mean, it sometimes on Instagram, it's just you say, "Are you serious?
Yes.
You really are doing this?" You know. Mine was from an intellectual capability. I wanted to be, I don't want to say the smartest guy in the room, but I wanted to have the intellectual aspect to be the most important.
Yeah. Yeah, to
That
try
I
to be
could
able
help.
to answer the
Yeah.
questions.
Right.
And that's sort of the way that Wes and I have tried to be. You know, it's one of the reasons the podcast started is because we wanted to always try to have the right answers and not be left going, well, I don't know why. And if we didn't know why, that's okay, but we wanted to try to figure that out. And it's interesting because that model, I think, it's a slower start, and correct me if I'm wrong.
It is.
It's a slower start
is.
than, you know, going to the golf course and just having drinking buddies or something. But in the long run, it seems like it creates sustainability.
Well, one of the things I tell both my boys is that, you know, this is not a sprint. It's a marathon. And every step means something. And so you've got to constantly building on what you've done, looking forward to your future. Whether it's in the business world, his brother is in the business world and quite successful, and with Michael, it's a matter of just taking the right steps forward and spending the time. And you know, the young people are different now than when I was there. You know, there's different focus points, and you're both very young. I mean, you know that.
Thank you.
You know, it's different for us that have been around for a while, and you know, you can even get a little bit negative with what you see, and you have to work really hard not to be negative.
All right.
So-
Certainly, we've you mentioned you've had recently a few of your employees of long time retire, and you've got other employees there that have been there 20, 30 years almost.
Right.
And really, this is a new environment we're in. We've seen a lot of people that have kind of reevaluated.
Well, let me tell you, I know we were kind of going, and let me just tell you what we did.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really important for your audience to hear this.
Yeah.
We made the decision on day one of the pandemic and we have a very progressive blue state. So, you know, we're still wearing masks, I think, when we go to the bathroom. You know, it is just crazy. But we made a decision to pay all the employees their full salary and all benefits through everything, even though we were closed down.
Wow.
And we took care of emergencies as we could, but there weren't that many. But everybody was paid through the whole entire pandemic. Full salary, full set of benefits. And they came in and they did paperwork and things that would be beneficial to us, but we didn't lose a single employee. So when the bell rang and we could go back to work, we had a full crew and we were ready to go. And I think that's really, sure, it was a big investment, and it cost us, you know, personally a little bit, but in the long run, it's negligible.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
So where are you going to find people, and how are you hiring now?
Well, we're trying very hard. We're down one surgery assistant, and we have had ads in the paper and on the various places that you try to get employees, and it's been very disappointing. I mean, they make an appointment for an interview and don't show.
Right.
It's a different world,
Right.
and so we're struggling, like everybody else is.
And as you know, we see that struggle. I think that really trying to find people that align with your vision is
Yes.
the key. And that's to create that long-term employee, is to find somebody that has the same passions as you, right?
Yes. Now, talking about an interesting thing that's happening right now with DSOs in dentistry,
Yes.
right? It's obviously disrupting.
Yes.
We're hearing about going back to the transition idea. It's another mode where clinicians can potentially transition out of practice or into a different type of practice. Obviously, you're doing things differently there, but what's the role of that? What is that doing? What's the future look like for that from your perspective?
I think the future for DSOs is incredibly robust, given educational loans and deficits, and the concept of more people wanting to work less hours in a more restricted environment. Certainly you give up your independence and some of your ingenuity when you do this. but I think the DSOs are only going to continue to grow, and it's going to be the single or group practitioners. It's their job to figure out how to sort of negotiate a niche, because there's going to be a niche.
Yes.
Not everybody wants to go to a DSO
Right.
or to an HMO or anything like that. There's going to be all kinds of concierge-type services that'll be available. People still want that.
Yes.
And I think there's always room for quality. Over
Absolutely.
quantity. Always room, you know.
And we've seen that in medicine, right? Because
Yeah,
we've seen
absolutely.
the concierge idea, as you
Right,
say.
right.
There's a niche for that, and I think it's actually a rather large niche. I think everybody wants the best.
Right.
Now, they can't always afford to do the best in some cases, or there are limitations, maybe availability, but everybody, when given the option, pretty much wants that.
That's right. And the idea of one of the things we try to talk with our patients is, insurance doesn't pay for everything.
Right.
And some of what we do is very discretionary. And, it may come down to some other material thing, but what we do is still, and a lot of times, very discretionary.
Yes.
I remember, as we get to the end here, I remember having to write an essay in dental school as to why we need teeth, and of all things, it came from the orthodontic department. We all had to write a 2-page essay on why do we need teeth, and the essence of that is we don't.
That's right.
So all three of us could be obsolete.
Right.
So I think it's a matter of just how you present yourself and everything. And some of the things I'll talk about this afternoon are just, I'm going to talk about a fee. I'm going to talk about trends. I'm going to talk about profitability. And when it comes to implants, I'm going to talk about whether an implant is, in fact, a commodity. With 80 or more implant companies in the United States, is it a commodity like a block of gold? And so what makes it not a commodity? So what takes a value and turns it into a premium product? It's a support structure that the companies give us. So those are all things you have to kind of consider when you're buying product.
Absolutely.
Certainly, the Academy of Osseointegration appreciates your contribution to dentistry and to the Academy itself. Tell us a little bit about what you're excited about with the Academy of Osseointegration.
Well, I think I'm sad to be off the board. I'm sad to have to step away. I think the Academy is the single greatest organization in dentistry, in implant dentistry. It sits at the pinnacle of the pyramid of organizations, and it has the ability to shape a lot of the future for implant dentistry, and it's multi-specialty, so it brings everybody together in an environment like this and allows them to function, all as one.
Yes.
So I think that's very, very important. You don't have periodontists or oral surgeons or prosthodontists, in their own little silos. They're all together here, working together. And so all the lectures, I had to tailor my lecture to the fact that I had an audience that's going to be quite diverse.
Absolutely.
So I think the Academy of Osseointegration is key to that future.
Yes, and
amazing.
We feel the same way, and
Yep.
even to the point of knowing that we have to be able to respond to not just the clinical, not just the research, but also to the business and how it's changing, and knowing where we should position ourselves to create that niche.
Well, this is a landmark symposium this afternoon. The fact that they're going to have 4 people get up and talk about 4 different aspects of business.
Yes, yes,
That's
and
very unusual.
That's right.
absolutely,
Because
Absolutely.
everybody's afraid to talk about money.
That's right.
That's
right.
right.
We are so clinically driven and so technically driven, we forget about those 2 other aspects
Right.
of business. And I think that it's I'm glad that we've got to know you and what you have done, again, for your area and your community and the patients you're caring for. I remember when I got on your website, I said, this is the kind of person
Yeah.
that I want to surround myself with, because it's exceptional dentistry. And you know what I saw in there? Evidence-based practice.
I'm going to
That's
say
right.
that this afternoon.
Yes.
I have a slide. It's on our wall.
Yes,
Yes.
I remember seeing
it's
that.
on our wall.
Yes.
We're an evidence, and we are.
Yeah.
We try our very best to be evidence-based.
Right.
And so it's been a real pleasure to meet the 2 of you, and what you're doing for us is phenomenal.
Well, thank you
And
so
we
much.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
We
I
are.
would come back anytime you ask me.
Oh,
Well, that means a lot.
means a
That
lot.
means a lot.
Yeah.
And yes, the evidence-based. We love what we love about this is as you said, it is a marathon, And we believe that in the end, doing it right wins.
That's right.
And even from a business standpoint,
That's right,
whether you look
yeah.
at it from an ethical standpoint, a sleep better at night standpoint.
It may be slow growing at first.
That's right.
But in the end, the satisfaction.
That's right.
Oh, man.
It's just
pretty
worth
special.
it.
I
It's
know
worth it.
Michael would love to have an opportunity to spend time
Yeah.
with the two of you again
Yeah.
because he really enjoyed that. And he was very nervous at the beginning. And at the end, he said, wow, Dad, this was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Well,
And I
good.
said, well, these are good guys, you know.
Yeah.
Well, thanks
So,
for being with us
you're
today.
quite
We
welcome.
really
Thank you so much,
appreciate it. It's
Dr.
great
Thanks
to
for
see
asking
you.
me. Thank you.